Hi, everyone. Harry here to talk about the next step and maybe the last step in the saga of the men whom the United States had tried to spirit away to South Sudan, but they were preempted from doing it by an order from a district court judge in Massachusetts, Judge Murphy, who said, wait a second, you need to give them due process. You can do it on the plane and keep it there, or you can bring them back. And for many weeks thereafter, these men have been on the plane where we've at least been led to think there have been translators and lawyers and people coming in to protect their rights that the U.S. didn't do. What the U.S. did was give them a piece of paper in English that they couldn't understand and then spirit them away to South Sudan. This is the case involving third-party countries. So these are people who are not from South Sudan. They are from everywhere but there, from a series of different places, and they tend to be, of the 8, 4 supposedly have been convicted of murder. They tend to be some pretty rough customers. But this is the case where the Supreme Court, basically on emergency order last week, pulled the rug out from under the district court judge and said, with basically no explanation, we are staying his order that made this requirement and kept the United States from being able to go forward. And we then had the back and forth where the judge said, okay, but I issued 2 orders. One of them was in the wake of the United States' basic disobedience and squirreliness. I think that one still stands, doesn't it? I'm going to go on the basis of that order. The United States rushes back to the Supreme Court for the so-called motion for clarification, and the Supreme Court says, yes, to clarify, when we said we are removing that order, that necessarily encompassed both aspects of it. Justice Kagan indeed said, I thought this order that we imposed, taking the stay away, was wrong. But we did impose it, and when we said that it had to encompass both of the orders from the district court. You can't do one without the other. So I agree. It was a 7-2 ruling that now there's nothing to stop the United States from deporting these folks. And they did. 8 of them go to South Sudan. Now, we've talked about South Sudan, the youngest country in the world. That is not a good thing. It's just a few inches away from a state of nature where it's not clear if there's any law. People absolutely terrorize, rob, persecute, people who have come through. It's a terrible hellhole to be to be deported to. And it seems to have been chosen almost with a special kind of malicious glee by the United States. So we're talking about people who have orders saying, don't send me back to my home country, I'll be persecuted there. And so the U.S. says, okay, we'll do another country. And they choose what seems to be, just as, I've said this, CCOT's the sort of high-tech hellhole. This is the sort of low-tech hellhole. And the lawyers for the 8 wanted to make a special claim, but this is what the district court said. No, the Supreme Court has told me I've got to let you go. I can't hear your claim. But the claim was sending us there. We got to go to a third party country, but anywhere in the world, they choose the nastiest, the place where people are likely, literally, this was in Sotomayor's dissent, but I think it's accurate. People are going to die and be killed by the marauders and the sort of criminals who run the show in South Sudan, and that's where the U.S. in what you have to take to be an element of this weird campaign to treat immigrants unlawfully in the country as badly as you possibly can. So after the Supreme Court said in a motion for clarification, no, we meant it, you can't go on that second order, They made a final last gasp attempt on Friday saying, don't let us go because it's cruel and unusual punishment. You are punishing us by sending us to South Sudan, and it's cruel and unusual. And the court said we can't do it. So you really see now what is happening with the Supreme Court in its basic disempowering of district court judges to grant remedial relief, not simply nationwide injunctions, but here the judge has just been told your stay is out. It's out the window. Not very much discussion of it at all, and definitely not, and this is a recurrent flaw in the Supreme Court, no real analysis of irreparable injury. They may have concluded for mysterious reasons that they haven't told us that they think the U.S. is likely to win, but that's one of only 4 reasons that they have to find and the U.S. has to prove in order to overcome this order of the district court. And one of them is irreparable injury. And you have the United States, which can keep them in the plane indefinitely. And what's the injury? Versus these people who are looking at, actual possible death and every manner of bad treatment by going to South Sudan. But the Supreme Court says that it's dissolved, in the district court order is dissolved. And what does that leave? It leaves the executive order that says, or the executive action that says, take them to South Sudan. That may be unconstitutional. It may be punishment, but that, says the Supreme Court, will figure out later. Remember, so many of these cases are still on a preliminary footing, and the question is whether you can grant the extraordinary step of a stay or an injunction while you work things out. So the Supreme Court has said no, and that leaves the executive to have its way. They said go to South Sudan. Now they're going to South Sudan. They could still continue, and they may still continue, to press their claim that it's unconstitutional. And of course, they could win that claim and it'd be mooted, because who the hell knows if you can even find them in South Sudan and if they're alive. So for mysterious reasons, we have a regime where the U.S. may well have acted lawlessly and unconstitutionally. And for that reason, a district court has said, let's hold everything and figure this out. And the Supreme Court says, let's not hold everything and not figure it out. You go ahead, but don't put a stay on. And that means that for now could be a year, could be 2 years. It depends when and if the U.S. would take up the claim. For now, 8 folks are subject to this possibly lawless order. So there you have it. Right after the Supreme Court dissolves the stay or makes clear that it's dissolved, these 8 are sent to South Sudan. That's where we are now. We may never hear another word from them again, given the sort of hellhole and sort of, vanishing pit to which they've been consigned. Talk to you later. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video and other Talking Feds content, please take a second to like and subscribe. Talk to you later.